Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing in the book of Isaiah. We've come to chapter 32. But before we continue into chapter 32, there was something in the chat. A long time ago, I was monitoring chat constantly, or I forget how I did that. I think I just had it open the whole time. I'm not even sure how I accomplished that, because my screen is already so cluttered, it's annoying. But anyways, let's look what was written there. I looked yesterday, I thought about it, and Louis L. says, I have a few questions. Could you help me out? I don't know. John 8. John 8 is a passage I'm very familiar with. The King James Version. Jesus answered them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth forever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. What does this mean? But the first part, it means that to commit sin is to serve sin. That is what it is. All human beings are slaves to sin. And therefore, we are sold under sin. And we are purchased with a price in Christianity. That is the blood of Jesus. That is why we put our faith in him. Because that is the only way to free yourself from the bondage of sin. Now, it would probably bring up additional questions. Can I show you something you didn't know? That's exceedingly possible, because there are many things I don't know. You just said you're not sure what God's will is. He must have been watching the live stream. Well, that's true. I'm not sure what God's will is. You said you're not sure what God's will is. Are you open to reading a few verses that will show you a light? Hello. And that was then, are you watching the chat, actually? I must have not copied all of it. But that's basically where it ends. And then Katie said, hi, Luis. Well, thing is, when he says you're not sure what God's will is, that's qualified. I didn't qualify. I should have qualified it. Because on many levels, of course, we know God's will. Because honestly, I perceive this conversation, I'm answering it as honestly as I think it would be worthy of if it was asked in a certain way. But honestly, I felt like after reading it that there was some sort of proselytization going on. Like, these were questions to which he had the answers. And I was supposed to either be... It was more of a test than a question, I think. But not sure what God's will is. We know what God's will is. God has told us many times, he has shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God. That we should put our faith in Jesus Christ. That we should be perfect, as also our Heavenly Father is perfect. There are many ways in which God has revealed his will to us, and we have a sense also of God's overarching will. But there are many ways in which we do not know God's will. And anyone who says they know what God's will is, and by that they mean completely. Like as if I was to say, I'll tell you I know God, but I don't know God. I know the Lord, or better, I am known of him. That's why I say he knows who I am, because I'm talking to him and listening and trying to listen and talking about him and looking for guidance from him. So he's probably familiar with me. I make noise in his direction. I know he is. Oh, I realized I got my wrong headphones on. That's why it sounds so bad. Not like having that green thing above my head. It's funny. I make myself known to God because he has made himself known to me. And so I'd like to know God. And I've learned much of God since I was a young man. Some things I learned about God were not true. Some things I learned about the faith were not true. And I guess the first impression I got immediately of this, that this was some sort of holiness question series that was supposed to be put to me, where they would start saying something about it, so that if you ever could, and they lead you down a breadcrumb trail of verses. Because when he says, can I show you some verses that will show you a light? When people talk like that, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because I know they mean well, but they're not listening to anything anyone else is saying. They're only speaking at you. And that's fine. That's what he's about as far as in the chat. I don't know if he's here today, and maybe I'll take a peek over there. Is there noise in the chat. I'm not going to get into the chat. We're going to start Isaiah. But if there is, then I'll look at that later. Nope, nothing in the chat. Okay. Maybe I'll look at the end. Maybe I won't. I probably won't because I'll be too engrossed in this. Yeah, because the thing is, it's like, I would say to those who say, once you believe in Jesus, if you ever sin again, you're somehow not a Christian. I would say, what does the last verse of Galatians 5 say? Is it the last verse? I don't always have it chapter and verse exactly. I think it's the last verse of chapter 5. All right, do I look it up? I thought that was the way I told myself to memorize it, and now looking it up seems like I'll look it up. We'll go to Galatians 5, the last verse. Oh, no, it isn't that. Is it 6, the last verse? No, the other thing is, it's 6. It's after the last verse of 5, which is 6. The first verse of chapter 6. See how good I am with the verses. But I'm in the right, it's like, that's almost a bullseye. If you're throwing darts. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, if someone sends me to a verse, I always look around. They say, oh yeah, look in this and this verse. I'll read the whole chapter, check a different verse in another chapter, or the same verse in the adjacent chapter, maybe. It's good when they give you the words, though. If a man be overtaken in fault, you which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. You can be tempted. And if you get too arrogant about your sinlessness, you will be tempted, and you will fall. And great will be your fall. And if you do not recognize that you have fallen, you will fall further. Because that's what I've seen that happens to men who deny when they make mistakes. Men who deny their mistakes in order to maintain this BS about them being perfect already, when God has not made them perfect. I can tell. Everyone around them can tell. Unless they're all just lying to each other as they all behave in equivalent levels of unrighteous hypocrisy. Because that's what happens to those who go down the road of we're already perfect. We've already attained. Oh, amazing. I wish I could attain with you. Without, God, with 5 verses, you can change someone's mind and make them into a hypocrite. Yeah, we ought to be perfect, and that is our goal. The sooner the better. I've preached that for a long time. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day to be righteous. Don't wait. And that's mostly and the chief thing, righteous thing one can do is turn your heart towards the Lord and keep it there. I mean, it's like one who is focused on God and doing the right things. Your life becomes filled up with good things, and it's harder for sin to get in at the margins. You become, like it says of Job, you've put a hedge around him. And God does help us. That's how we do become like him. Perfect. That's what he's doing. That's his work. But it's not the work of an instant. Sometimes sin in an instant, God will banish many sins from our life when we turn to him looking for righteousness. You want righteousness? He'll give you righteousness. But the righteousness you're given is not... If you think it's the full measure of Jesus' righteousness, I want to meet those people. I do. I want to meet those people who are fully righteous like Jesus is righteous. Because I know what that would look like. And I meet people who say they are, and they're not. So you say you're fully righteous as Jesus is righteous. It's not something that God has imputed to you and is making you more, oh no, it's something you've just fully received now as you are. And you're trying, and you're presenting yourself to me and telling me that's what it is. I'm not saying that's Lewis, but that's the sentiment I get from that. And that's where I think that was going. All right. Somebody think I have actually, if I had any doubt, I wouldn't say so. Isaiah 32, verse 1. Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. And a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. And the eyes of them that see shall not be dim, and the ears of them that hear shall hearken. The heart also of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammerers shall be ready to speak plainly. The vile person shall no more be called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful. For the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity, to practice hypocrisy, and to utter error against the Lord, to make empty the soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. The instruments also of the churl are evil. He deviseth wicked devices, to destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. But a liberal deviseth liberal things, and by liberal things shall he stand. And then rise up, ye women that are at ease. Okay, that's a nice place to break. Because I know that place. I need a drink of water. My mouth is dry. But I was almost thinking, I'd think about this for a bit. I'm sure you are. A king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. You know, David's heir restored to his throne. And then, you know, the royal house established. Princes, I don't know if it always means sons. I think it means lesser rulers. And should I explore that? Let's explore that just slightly. I don't know why. I'm going to look up the word. Because we haven't really looked up the word princes, I think. In our study of Isaiah, we haven't gotten much of it. But in this context, since... Browse. There we go. I actually had that set up pretty good. Didn't even flash. If I remembered the process properly, it would always go smoothly. That flash frame can't be avoided as far as I know. All right, I gotta just lift up my glasses. No, I can read. Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness. Oh, okay, wait, we had that. Princes. Tsar. Now, not like Caesar, like the Russian Tsar. Because though it sounds similar, not at all related. I know that. Mishpat, judgment, king, melech. The Hebrew word for king is melech. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that up. Melech, like Molech also, the god Molech, he had king built into his name. Sar. It's interesting. How much... I should have thought about that. When it says, for the king it is prepared, well, Molech, Melech, probably. I just want to go to Isaiah 31. Oh, no, that is, yeah. Tophet is ordained the king. It is Melech. Anyway, so Sar, a chieftain, chief ruler, official, captain, prince. Those are the varying uses. It does not necessarily mean son of the king, like we think the prince is the son of the king. It might have more the force of like dukes, lesser governors, used quite widely in the scriptures, 421 occurrences. There is a book of kings. So princes probably comes out all the time. Chief, captain, general, governor, keeper, lord, according to Strong. I like to go down to Strong's because it's always like that's the one I'm familiar with, as far as navigate easily here. Didn't have to do that back thing, but that's all right. So there we go. Princes, Sar, nothing special there to see, but, are just to demonstrate our idea. When we think of a prince, we think the prince is the son of the king, the heir. And in fact, when I read that, my impulse is these are the heirs. And in a sense, they are heirs. Because they're heirs of God's kingdom. Ultimately. And they have the rule of it. And they reign in judgment. And that, that is something, and people say, judge not that you be not judged. And it's like, yes, there is that element. And that goes into, like, the nuance of God's will. I don't know God's will, and I didn't really finish talking about this before, but I don't know God's will down to the micro detail. That may mean I'm not positive, if I, at any given time, if it's God's will that I should do A or B, when they may be choices like, do I work on this song or on that song? Or, for me, I want to give something that has no righteous or unrighteous component. Like, I don't know, or so, like, say, or should I work on this important thing or on that important thing? Paul and, was it Barnabas? Or, I think it was Barnabas. They had such a disagreement at some point about, was it Timothy? I believe it was Timothy. They had such a disagreement that they parted company. And they, Paul going one place, and they split up. And it's not necessary, whatever that disagreement, it may not be anyone's right or wrong or anything. But, or even in that, there may have been sin, but whether we go here or we go there is often a question that we don't know God's will about. I mean, I don't have I was going to say divining rod, but I don't know if that's even, if that would make any sense as an analogy. Anyways, it kind of does, like some magic to find out something so mundane. Yeah, I mean, like to find God, where's the water? Where is, according to your will? It's like there's a certain level at which I don't know God's will in a given circumstances. In given circumstances, let's say it that way. Not in a given circumstance, also. Okay. But, so man's judgment is sometimes full of nuance and gets corrupted. Like it is in our world today, things have become very corrupt at high levels of power and in many ways. And it's not just up above, it's also among the people. The corruption is general. And it comes from the decadence and the ease which we have. And I think in some ways, the pandemic probably accelerates this. So, that's not a good thing. Not for our nation, but also, it could be even worse than that, of course. It could be, well, it is worse because our nation is kind of the lynch key of the civilization that exists in the world that's trying to make the world a better place. And not just trying, and not, like there's a philosophy that they want to make the world a better place. But there are other people who just want to exploit that. You know what I mean? And from that side, there's a lot of pushing. And a lot of people who think they just want to make the world a better place, so they give these people power and they'll make the world into hell. But when God sets things right, after his judgment is like his wrath is poured out, like we had in the previous chapters, when the judgment of God comes. I'm going to go over lose again. That was his fires in Jerusalem. That's why I thought that was at the end of the last thing, the fire in Jerusalem, the furnace. Turn you to him. Yeah, it was a call to repent. I'm basically saying that, in fact, whatever. All right. But when Christ reigns, judgment and justice will be perfect. There will not be, we will know God's will because he will be there to tell it to us. Judgment, there has to be judgment. Jesus did not only say, judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. Because it's not necessarily a commandment not to judge. What he's saying is, it's just like a proverb. But you got to take the whole thing. Because the judgment you use to judge others will be used against you. You know what I mean? So it's saying, when you judge things, take that into account. Do not condemn people who do the same things you do. Like, well, think about it. All these, there's some, guy who went down in a sex scandal recently, just a couple days, whatever, right? But all these people condemning him, half of them are guilty of the same things. Bunch of hypocrites. And they were in the same, of course, they were just drooling over him months ago, a year ago, when he was killing people. Virtually. Or literally. I don't want to disrespect the dead. Why should I care about giving the wicked a fair shake? The wicked don't deserve fairness on some level, but we owe it to justice to give it to them. You know what I mean? Because that's how I want to be judged. I want to be judged fairly. So I should judge them fairly. But I should not condemn people. I should be careful in my condemnations and my judgments against others when I myself am guilty of the same or similar, and sometimes or any or equivalent. Some people, they get so on riding down some particular sinner, of a category, some sort of category, especially sexually, right? It's like, oh, these, but they're looking at pornography or whatever. Oh, the homos, I don't like, but they're also themselves corrupt and sharing in the corruption and allowing it into their mind. Lord, deliver us from evil things. But in the reign of Christ, righteousness will reign. He will reign in righteousness, and there will be judgment. Jesus didn't only say, he didn't only say, judge not that you be not judged, but he also said in John 7, verse 25, that's one I definitely memorized, judge not after the outward appearance, but judge righteous judgment. He actually tells us there to judge. We are supposed to judge righteous judgment. That means fair, because the thing is, if you do no judgment at all, because he's always saying, do judgment to the fatherless and widows. Do judgment to the poor and needy. You got to judge on their behalf, because they don't. They do things that hurt people, and then they just say they're not. It's all BS, and then they get backed up by all the millionaires that run the media and all. I mean, not just the ones. I mean, millionaires who are the mouth puppets of these people, because that's what they are. They're mouth puppets of us, kind of a wicked cabal. I don't know what you call it. Oh, I know what it's called. How do we get to? It just keeps going there, so I'm gonna just delete it. I don't know why. Because there's something more to say. I don't know. I don't think so. Remember that when I said I didn't know what God's will was. And and like I said, I don't always know it. I don't know what God wants, because I'm like, not about right and wrong, like, should I do the sin? But it's about, should I go to that place? Should I do this work of God or that work of God? You already know that. I can go to you and find out what God's will. I don't mean to be mocking at all. Sorry. I don't mean to be mocking. It comes naturally to me. It's something I have to suppress, actually, because I'm not entirely... I'm a somewhat crude individual, I'll confess. A man shall be a hiding place in the wind. As men had been... And I want to make sure that's singular, actually. Let's go back to... let's see if I can do this right. This is how a transition should actually happen. There we go. There's a flash frame at Can of Wood. A man... It is Ish. Now Ish, I'll open it up there. That's the way Now, there are several words for man in Hebrew. There's Adam, which is Adam, man, and that refers to man in the sense of humanity. So Adam, in fact, I think. Let me just double check this. I was gonna say something, but I'm just gonna, instead of being uncertain about it, we'll just go there. Genesis. And he called woman. Yeah. Now here, see, she was called woman because she was taken out of man, right? It's not, she was called Adama because she was taken out of Adam. No. She was Ishisha. That's Ishsha. Okay, it's Ishsha. It's kind of rough to do the double SH. Don't go Ishsha. Ishsha. Just get that. They probably slurred it. Come on. Feminine of Ish. A woman using similar sense as Enosh. Anyways, so Ish is the male. It's man. Not human, but not explicitly male, because it can be used as like a man. Like they had a word for, like it's a person like basically like, oh, there's a human over there. Versus there's a man over there, there's a woman over there. We use the word man in English generally, though. Like man refers to man and woman. Because, well, the origin of women is wife men, I believe, in the old Anglo-Saxon. Something like that, right? Anyway, so the words in Hebrew, there's other words for man that we could have found, like Gibor, which means like a mighty man, and then there was also, what was the other word for man? Enosh, or Enosh, I forgot how it's pronounced, but it was mentioned there in the under woman. Here we go, Enosh. And this also means man or mankind, but different. We're not going to go into the meaning of Enosh. It's enough that we know in Isaiah, right, what we were looking for is Ish. Because I've never in any of my studies really gotten into talking about Ish, Adam, and all that. So, but that's good to know, that it's Ish. It's not going to be like a man and not a woman, but the point is it's not saying Adam, but Ish. And therefore, it's referring to, like, well, it's referring to Christ, of course. But that aspect of man that is higher, because I remember that was something that Bullinger talked about, like the Adam refers to man in just the base sense of just being a creature born of the dust, just like in the story. It's not a high exalted thing. That's why when Jesus becomes a man, it's in terms of Adam. He became a man. But there's something in Ish that is it's considered like a higher, more, like to call a man, you call him a man, an Ish, not usually an Adam. So it's not saying a human will be but a man will be a hiding place from the wind. If you let your voice do that thing, then you got it about right in English. Like that's the proper, and a man shall be hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest. Someone's going to stand up and be a man, and that man is Jesus Christ. A man's going to stand up and say, this is what's right. This is what judgment is. And people run to that and they'll say, that's the place to go. That's the place to hide from the tempest. That's the place that gives you rivers of waters in the dry place. That's a shadow of a great rock in a weary land. It's the word of God going out, giving hiding place, because that's the truth. Because everyone can be like, that's what's right. That's how it ought to be. Judgment should be fair. Wickedness should not run amok. Rulers should be held accountable, but if they can't be righteous, They will be held accountable. That's the thing. Not they should be held accountable. When political leaders step out of line, they must be held accountable. There's no if, ands. If they are not, then that is a disaster. Because they'll destroy us. But that's what a king or what a leader ought to be. There's someone who is a hiding place from the... you know why they're a hiding place? Because they're out there in the damn wind. They're a covert because the covert takes the brunt of the storm. But the people who are in power in our days think they're entitled to first position in the hiding places because of who they are. Like, that's the way they think, literally. That's not even a little bit of an exaggeration. The higher you get, the more they think like that. Well, they're very important, so they should be. And this is across party lines to a great degree. They think that entitles them to first spot in many things. And in some ways, because that's what we give leadership. We give them first spot. There was a thing like why the leaders eat first, so to speak. You know, it's the same thing in the house. Why I'm the most important person in the house. You know, it's just the way it is. Because the person in charge is supposed to bear the brunt of everything. So others don't have to. And that's why they give them that control. That's why they give them that leadership. That's why they put them in the position of ensuring that justice gets done. You know, there was something just so annoying. Someone the other day was, the president's job is to help the people and blah, blah, blah. The president's job is the executive branch. His job is to execute the law. The law. And I think our president already violated his oath by saying he knew what he was doing was illegal when he extended the moratorium. That's a high crime and a misdemeanor right there. He did a crime in office. Presidents are not supposed to break the law. They are the law. They're the chief law enforcement officer of the country. How is it people don't know this? That's like 101. I saw on the actual news, his job, this wasn't even and they were people who I was not unsympathetic with, actually. They shared my point of view. But that's what they were hemming and hawing. Like, what his job is. The job of the government is not to take care of the people. Holy Lord. You know, it's like, I do think there's a place for like a social safety net, but not like for them to, we'll take care of everybody now. It's like, get out of here. Now, it's fun. There's a certain degree to which there is a liberality, which we're going to talk about here, and you know, if that's what it actually means. It's fun. We never exactly know until we get there. It's fun to read the King James and just let it roll off the tongue, right? When we start talking about liberals and stuff like that, it's funny. Because I consider myself actually to be quite liberal in a certain sense. Not politically liberal, like in the sense of liberal conservative, but as a sense of like the way my mind works. I'm very open-minded and stuff. And I always, you know, well, I'm an artist and stuff, and I value art. I think it's very important. So, you know, because that's primarily my calling is, I mean, when the Lord called me, the first thing he put me into was music. That was the first, well, actually, then teaching was first, actually, to tell you the truth. Music came second, so. I guess that's why I get a lot more teaching done these days than music. Though there's music in the world, you know, we'll see. Man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, a covert from the, okay. But that's how it ought to be. You know, that's what leaders, you know, that's what I am for my family, and it's a very small scale. But also, that's what a leader ought to be. That's why a man should have ruled his house well before he even gets to be a leader, especially in the church. But, you know, if you see a man whose family is a mess, don't elect him to office. If his kids are a bunch of, you know what I mean, like Joe Biden, his kid is, obviously a criminal. I mean, obviously a criminal, and so is his father. His father is literally, he has declared himself lawless. It's a lawless president. I had an idea for a song where I would talk about Judge Roberts, and because he's lawless too. Judge Roberts, lawless, the lawless, something about the lawless. It's gonna be like a Western themed thing. I'm not sure exactly. Judge Roberts, I was gonna the Roberts court because I wanted to roast that buddy because when and say this is why it crosses over because when they pervert justice, we got to speak about it, And when it comes up in my Bible study, you can bet I can speak it because this is not a charity. This is not a 501c3 nothing. This isn't for profit. This is my hobby. I don't make money with this. I don't claim. I have a separate business that's unrelated to this. (501c3) charity. All right. Yeah. I don't take donations. Well, I've accepted them in the past, and I do accept. I still have a couple supporters who know where I am. The eyes of them that see shall not be dim, and the ears of them that hear shall hearken. Do we need these analogies of rivers of waters in a dry place? You put out the place in the Gospels in John chapter 4 where Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman tells her, if you knew who you were talking to, which is the Messiah. I'm going to paraphrase this because I've memorized a number of passages, but even those, when I try to quote them verbatim, sometimes if I don't sing it, I can't speak it. So I better just do it. But he said, the woman at, if you knew who was speaking to you, you would ask of him and he would give you living water. And she said, well, that you would never have to come here and fetch water again. And she said, oh, give me this water. And he says, I forget the exact exchange actually, and I don't want to remember that. But it basically said, whoever believes in me. Well, let's just go there actually. Let's just do it. Let's just have that one because I want to talk about that. I'll just do that. And then this, fortunately, in the New Testament, John. I can also check, see if I got in the right chapter. The woman of Samaria. Oh, here we go. If thou knewest the gift of God and who it is that said to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou this living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? And the Samaritans, when they say this would probably offend the Jews a bit, because calling Jacob their father, but the Samaritans were not, it's not entirely clear, they were not considered Jews, but they considered themselves Jews because they followed the Jews' religion, because they had been taught to, because when they came there, they had problems occupying the land. And so they had to honor the God of that's what so they got a priest of Israel who taught them how to worship the God of Israel, but they didn't do it the way the Jews did it. So the Jews looked at them, they hated them in that sense that they were a reflection of themselves, even but meaning like a distorted reflection. I mean, it's like because they took up the same religion, came to a different result. On one level, you say, no, that's wrong, but also you're kind of insulted potentially. Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, he said. Verse 14, but whosoever drinketh the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. The woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not. And he said, Go call thy husband. And then he has, I thought there was more said, actually. That's what I was getting confused, because it's like that's when they go to the part about the husband. Okay. So I did remember that story pretty much to the end, except that, everlasting life. Because that's what water represents. It is water. It represents life. Even Like I said, even in their pursuit of life in the universe, science presumes that water is necessary for life. So it is a good symbol for life. It is something just understood, even from ancient times, to be absolutely necessary for everything to live. That all things live by water. There aren't things that live entirely without it. I'm trying to think of something. Like entirely. Things that can survive the vacuum of space. Like tardigrades or something, and probably certain kinds of viruses, maybe, I don't know. Space virus. I know I said viruses, but, I was just thinking of small things that might, or bacteria or something, I don't know. Because I remember a long time ago, someone saying, they probably will find life on Mars. And it probably comes from Earth, because the Earth has been, if the Earth is, as they say, hundreds of, billions of years old, but also life has been around for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, according to those who say such things, right? In that time, the Earth would have been struck by many meteors, which it appears to have been, because there's many, many meteor craters all over the world at different stages of erosion. Some dispute whether those are all meteor craters, and that may be an issue. But it has been bombarded by a number of meteors, and these meteors will have kicked up material that potentially could have been returned to Mars. Or would have gone into space, and could have been, because Mars is a near large thing out there, the gravity eventually could draw it towards it. That was what I heard, that we have exchanged rocks with Mars. That there are Martian rocks on Earth from meteors that hit Mars and send it rock. I don't know how accurate that is. That's what I heard. I heard from someone who was supposed to be a scientist, but, they literally were, but I don't always believe scientists. Because you shouldn't. You should always believe men and accept trust in the Lord, right? Men ought to stand up and do the right thing. And be something you could rely on if you weren't already relying on the Lord primarily. But these men are doing their job, and they're doing the Lord's work. That's, they say, you're doing the Lord's work. Honestly, in government, they should be doing the Lord's work, but I think they're doing something else. That's what they try to tell you. Oh, we're doing the Lord's work. We're feeding everybody. We're doing the Lord's work. We're going to clothe everybody. We're doing the Lord's work. We're going to, shut down all the electrical plants. What? We got to save the planet. You all need to die, Too many people. Even though, like I said, it's a sad thing, because I remember watching a guy talk about how the Earth's population will peak at 8 billion, and with the props, the way things are going, and that's his prediction. But evil is not in the equation. Science doesn't understand evil. I noticed that. They kind of don't get it, especially as it results to human beings. Oh, they definitely don't get it. It is a mysterious thing, even just in the human mind. I kind of get it. I'm sure they kind of get it too, but how do you take that into account and make the world perfect? You can't. We need God to come, but in the meantime, men ought to do as it says. We ought to, I don't believe in the premillennial view that we got to make the world the best place. But the thing is, before Jesus will come, the thing is, that's what we should be doing. Occupy till I come. If the place is a mess when Jesus comes, he's going to find me trying to sweep up and start over. If they let the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? They got to start from the first things again. And then that's what we do. And that's what the Lord will find us doing. He will find us doing the work. Whether it's trying to, whether it's just maintaining a righteous order on the earth, because that's what we should do. If he gives us time on earth to make it right, for God's sake, the premillennials, if they're right, maybe something I don't see, whatever. Well, like I said, it's like we can learn from the lessons of the past and the scriptures, and God always makes it sound like if they would listen to me, he'll send it. Here's the thing. If they would listen, it could be great. We can make the world a wonderful place. We could work together with our technology and make the world into a place where judgment and righteousness dwell, where people are happy, and not because they have, because they have, I was gonna say something with staples or something. I had staples, like smiles stapled to their face. That was what was in my brain, but I thought that didn't make sense, because I was thinking of something. Well, basically, because they have an involuntary smile about it. I mean, what I mean is, we could, if we would listen, if we all turn to God. Is that happening? No. Is that close to happening? Not even a little bit. So. But we have the technology. We always have had the technology. But the thing is, we have the level of communication and cooperation where the voice can go out into all the world. But will they listen? Or will they, and like I said, like we see what happened with the pandemic. If a greater threat came, would this generation stand against it? If the Antichrist appeared, would the people living now, would they resist the mark of the beast, or would they fall into line? Even if it was 666 tattooed on their hands, I think that many people would do it. Because the convincing miracles of the beast. I just do. People say, oh, even if it's... I remember Arnold Murray said they could tattoo 666 all over your body. I say, I'm not so sure about that. That would still be acceptable. You're gonna stand before Jesus in the risen body? Well, he didn't believe in the resurrection of the body. That was something he kind of kept vague. Well, he was pretty explicit about it, actually. I didn't speak of Arnold Murray, my old teacher. I repudiated a long time ago. Well, not that. What was it? 2007? It doesn't seem... it's funny. I remember when I used to say, I've been doing this since 2007. That was probably around 2015 or whatever. It seemed like 7 or 8 years. I'm like, now it's like been over a decade, and I don't even think about it anymore. I mean, I do, because he left his imprint. Everything I think about, I always got to consider about what, I have to test. I don't have to. I mean, it's been so long. I don't think like, is this thing I learned from Murray right? I mean, I've done that work. And some would say that my belief in annihilationism is like a lasting scar, but actually, I think that's, like a lot of things, something that just the mainstream doesn't get right. Because, like I said, so death is metaphorical. You don't really die. Torment is literal. The eternal torment part of the end is literal, but the part about death being like dead or burned, like we normally understand those things to work, how they work, like if I take an unquenchable fire and I put something to it, it will burn it up completely. That's how those things work. That's the analogy. But no, that's actually not how it really... It literally works so that the individual cannot be burned. And I would just say, it's like there's a perpetual remembrance made. It also says they will be forgotten. You know what I mean? And if they're conscious, how they would know they had not been forgotten. You know what I mean? The only way they can truly be forgotten is if they don't exist. But that their example continues to exist. Anyways, so the heart of the eyes of them that see shall not be dim. Who has eyes to see, ears to hear, Jesus said on many occasions. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. Blessed are your eyes, for they see. Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, Simon, but my Father. That was that he was Christ. Who do you say that I am? Thou art the Christ. They could see. They knew who he was. And we who know not just that God exists, because that's a good start. That's where you have to start. You got, as I said, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and people who do not fear God are unwise and dangerous. To not only to other people around them, but to everyone. I mean, like, they can be dangerous in the sense of, like, they can take on criminal, sociopathic tendencies. Not that someone who believes in God can't do that either, but there's a difference between believing in a religion or something like that and genuinely fearing God. Understanding that you have consequence, so that it puts a governor on you that there's certain things you can't do, or you feel, or it would take a great deal of pressure externally to make you do, or things that might cause you internally to change, like emotionally, like to be, like, I would not normally kill, but I could see circumstances into which I would find myself uncontrollably with the urge to do so. Meaning, like, someone was hurting one of my close relations in front of me, and that kind of thing, where you're caught in an emotional tie, where I wouldn't bother. I know in that moment I wouldn't bother with second thoughts, because I've seen myself in the most stressful situations, like where people's lives are on the line, and I just go. I don't like. I just go. I don't pay attention to red lights or anything like that. I've done it. I've already done it. I already know. I already know I know where the wheels come off, because sometimes they do. Some of us are rash at times. I'm not usually rash, right? It's like it said about the Lord, and I've talked about this many times recently, and so we all know that in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, it says that there's this hidden wisdom. I'll just go there this time, because I don't know why I don't just do it to refresh my mind, because why not? I need refreshing. This week I've been a bit tired, and I feel like I've been a bit foggy. But the thing is, the way to help that is to just go to the place. It's near the end of the chapter. What man, I know the will of God. Okay, what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even so, things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. Now we received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given us of God, which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Ghost teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. But he that is spiritual judgeth all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. Hey, wait a second. I started reading the wrong verse. It's the beginning of the chapter. I don't know why I went, but that was good. I like that part. Because we know things by the Spirit. He has to reveal things to us. All things are available to me, but do I know all things at this point? No. And the thing is also, I don't know the will of God, meaning in the moment when I'm deciding. But I look to God and ask him, I want God's guidance. And then I trust that what I do was God's will. Even if it later on seems to be a hard lesson, I trust that hard lesson is God's will. My speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in the demonstration of the Spirit and of power. Paul talking about how he came to them, preaching Jesus. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have I thought the scriptures were up the whole time. Sorry, well, that's okay. I read the wrong scriptures, that was probably confusing, and now you'll be able to see the right ones. All right, sorry. For I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. I like to take in the context here. My speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom. I was with you in weakness and fear. Not exalting myself, but, abasing myself. Not talking about what a great man of God I was. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing, but with power, the demonstration of the Spirit, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. God has power. When I put my faith in him, not the very first time, but one time I should say, it's not when I put my faith in him. I put my faith in him. And I called on him, and I called on him, and I called on him. And then one day I called on him, and he answered with power and his Spirit. And that changed everything. So I don't believe in Jesus because a lot of clever arguments. You know what I mean? When someone says someone says to me like, I'm thinking of becoming a Christian. I could, for some people, I say, oh boy, well, let's start. But from my perspective, it's like, you need the Spirit of God. You need power to know that he's real. And then you're going to find all about everything. You know what I mean? You don't need to sign up. You'll be drafted. Howbeit, he says, we speak wisdom among them that are perfect. Yeah, there are places, well, whatever. We'll just leave it at that. We won't talk about the perfect there. Because that's one place where it's see, perfect. Perfect means, in this context, they have the perfect wisdom. Among those who have perfected wisdom in this perfect wisdom of God. Meaning, the wisdom is, I know he's real. Because I've seen the demonstration of the power of the Spirit in the name of Jesus Christ. Start calling the name of Jesus Christ and look for him to demonstrate his power to you. I didn't give you all kinds of enticing words, but that's what men want. That's let's convince the atheists. Let's go over there. We'll have an argument, debate. We'll try. And a lot of times those are mostly not to convince the people they're debating against, but the people in general. And it can be fun. I've always taken a great interest in the arguments people make back and forth. You know me. But I know that by that, I nearly lost my faith. And I've always maintained since that time that my faith is rooted and grounded in the demonstration of God's power from his Spirit. Period. There you go. And that's where the wisdom comes from. Not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. This is the part I keep referring to, okay? We speak the wisdom of God in a mystery. Even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the world unto our glory. Now, a lot of times people think, well, what's the mystery? The point that the mystery is God's power, because it's not just accessible to anyone. He has to reveal it to you. A mystery does not necessarily mean like there's some mystery out there to solve. What it means is this thing, the wisdom of God itself is hidden in this mystery that it must be demonstrated through the power of God's Spirit. Because God's Spirit, is a real entity that is in the world. It's in me, speaking to the world. And the mystery is that where that wisdom comes from, it comes from that power. And I can't give it to you through wisdom. I can't show it to you. The princes of the world don't have a clue about it because God is not in touch with them. And they aren't in touch with, are they reaching out to him? I called out to God many times. I called out on my knees. I've been trying to get in touch with the King because the things going on down here aren't righteous. And we got to do something, and we better do something about it, because if he comes back and we aren't working, if we aren't busy, if we haven't occupied, better be busy. So Jesus is coming. Everybody look busy. But he looks right through that BS, man. I like the joke, though. Is that the joke, or is it something else? God's watching, look busy? I forget where I saw that. It's definitely not my joke. Because it's not the way I would think, look busy. But I see the humor, though. To me, that's actually something very funny about that. Because And I think it's probably intentional. I think it's a Christian joke. It's got to be. Sorry, I mumble. But here's the part, which none of the princes of this world knew. For had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. If the wisdom that came with God's Spirit was known to the princes of this world, they would not have done what they did. Now it does not say here, Paul does not lay out what I say in addition to that. That oft times, well, why is that? Why don't he just show them? You know what I mean? Because people refer to, well, it's like it said in Isaiah, that they might go and fall backward and stumble and be snared and taken. It's like, because like he said, there shall be hooks in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. And why? Because they hate the Lord. They hate him. And they hate righteousness. And they know about the Lord. They know enough. A lot of what they know is misinformation and lies. But the thing is, the essence of the truth, that God is holy and good, is despised. That essence of truth, and that Jesus stands for good and right things, for justice and judgment, that also is corrupted in the minds of many in the world. And so it is hard to preach in the midst of such disinformation about the Lord and all that stuff, because that's what you have. You have atheist propaganda and BS. I remember I was watching something that said, I can't believe Sam Harris would straw man a friend. It's like, yeah, because he straw mans his enemies, that's for sure. Sam Harris, a big atheist. Oh, I'm so full of logic and reason, but he straw mans everybody. The guy's he's a hatchet man. I read his book. I think it sucked. I know he's smart, and it's a well-written book, but it's not an honest one. I mean, I understand there's a certain honesty to it, but there's not a genuineness, as far as I'm concerned. Meaning that people I generally don't, even that, you see what I just did? That was unfair, probably, in the eyes of that person, if they ever saw it, which they won't, of course. But they would see me as being unfair, because I thought that for a second. Can't take a call like that. But also, it's hard to... Remember, I put it deep in my drawer. All right. I didn't want to throw it. If that was a area code, I'm not... Well, I think that's a Chicago area code. Right. This is not a good time to call me. All right. Let's see. How much time we got? We're over an hour. Wow. But sometimes people aren't fair in their arguments. I take that into account. I don't want to be unfair. You know why I was unfair? Because I really don't know what he says. And the book I read was years ago. I didn't think that so much about it. But I've watched over time glimpses of... I don't know someone very well, right? And I make a criticism of them. Oh, that's how I feel about people who criticize Christianity without really knowing anything about it. Not really know anything about it. But, whatever. My argument is not primarily with them. It's like I always say, I think I am... Well, like, when I think about when I started teaching the Bible, it was a Bible study for Christians. And that's how it always has been, and that's how it always will be. It's like my primary focus is on edifying other believers, not on either criticizing unbelievers. I mean, like, as specific as that, which I generally don't do. But also in some level, it's like, yeah, you know what? That's how I feel about it. I see people behave badly, and I dislike it. The ears of them that so here should be hearkened. The heart of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammerer shall be ready to speak. I guess we'll have to pick it up with verse 4. It's very jam-packed. I mean, I think just literally the first concept here is a very important thing to just take in on its own. Righteous government. That's what God calls for. Righteous government, justice, fairness in justice. Fairness could mean a lot of things. People corrupt the meaning of it, but we all know what fair really looks like. And there should not be two systems in place. One for the wealthy and the elite. They have their justice system. And then there's one for everybody else, for the plebs. That's expressly forbidden in the scriptures. I'll bring that up maybe tomorrow, because now we're all done with time. We're over a minute. So we're over 5 minutes over. So thanks for joining this study. I look forward to being back again tomorrow.
Behold, see, we beseech thee, we are all thy people. Thy holy cities are a wilderness. Zion is a wilderness, Jerusalem a desolation. Our holy and our beautiful house, where our fathers praise thee, is burned up with fire, and all our pleasant things are laid waste. Wilt thou refrain thyself